Hi, welcome back to Burning River Bushcraft. Today I'd like to show you my snare tool. So this is a copy of a Redman Snare Tool. I fabricated this out of about 1/2 inch bar stock. The original is only like $5 or $6. So if you don't have the ability to fabricate this, I highly suggest you just pick one of these up. It's lightweight, inexpensive, and it does about 4 functions for you on the snare line. So the tool itself is just a straight welded T. In line with the handle, I've got a hole drilled, and that hole is large enough for my 11 gauge wire plus some, so I can probably fit a 9 gauge wire in here. Also, there's a slot ground in to the bottom. So what this slot does for you, it allows you to fabricate a snare stand just using your wire in the field. So all I'm going to do is slip my wire in the notch. I've got about a 4-inch tail sticking out, and I'll show you how this works. So I've tried making this video a couple times now, and I'm just not happy with the results of it. I'm going to try it in an open field today, see if that shows up any better. So I've got my snare tool with the 11 wire wrapped around it. If this was the trail where I wanted to make my set, and I got frozen ground today, which is fine with me. Okay, now I'm going to pull off about the amount of wire that I want. So I can pull my snare tool out, and then the wire itself, because I bent that tail into it, doesn't twist in the ground. Then I can set my snare. Alright, so with the snare tool, I was able to jam that 11 wire in. That had a U to it, and that's going to let it not twist. So if I just poke straight wire in the ground, it would just spin around like a windmill. So in this situation, I can move my snare up, down, over, and then as the animal comes through, the body of the snare holds. So the only thing that's going to be moving is the loop. And again, here is that U that I was able to create. So this is very similar to the flag that was on the commercial snare stand that I showed in an earlier video. So nothing to carry except your wire, which has about 1 million uses anyway, and your snare tool, and you can make a quick and easy snare stand in the field. So if you're carrying traditional rebar trapping stakes with you, this next method is going to allow you to secure your snare and support your snare all in one. So with this hole that I've got in here, I can insert my wire, and then I'm just going to wrap it around the handle. Okay, now that's all in line, and that's going to come right off. And then this pigtail lets your rebar stake go right through it. Now I'll show you how that works. Alright, so if this was going to be a real set, I would have anchored. I would have anchored the trap through the stake to begin with, or I'm sorry, anchored the snare. And now same concept. I've got a fixed wire that I can move, make my adjustments, and when an animal comes through the snare, the only thing that moves is the loop. Alright, so another use for this snare tool, and this is perfect in this condition because you could see I was having a little bit of trouble crunching through the frozen ground. My snare set right here, I don't know how well that shows up. I can knock a pilot hole pull my snare tool, and then that lets me fence in a snare. Alright, that was solid ice. I'm over mud right now. So, you know, under normal conditions, possibly you could cut a stick, poke it down into the mud, and allow you to block a snare set. But in these conditions, you know, this snare tool is going to save you. So the last thing this snare tool lets me do in the field is load a snare. Now, a snare works best when it's in a perfectly round shape. The snare has a tendency to want to jump closed. And here's an oblong snare here. These are fairly easy to tweak. So this is like a teardrop shaped oval snare. So with this, see, the first thing the snare does is has a tendency to, you know, elongate itself and then close. So if you were to maybe damage a snare in the field, or for example, when you load a snare, you load it for one particular size. If you ran out of say 10-inch snares and you had a 6-inch snare on you, I could open that snare up in the field with this snare tool. So let me give you an example here. Okay, this is pretty good. I'll make it smaller. So that's a pretty oblong snare right now, okay, because this is an unnatural state for this snare. So what I'm going to do is use the round stock of the snare tool, put pressure on it with my thumb, and give it a little strain. And now I've changed the contour. Now I'm going to move to the next spot. Now you can really screw a snare up like this, so it's best to, you know, practice this a few times. See, I've changed the contour again. So I'm going to move to a next spot in the snare. Okay. It's getting better. Right here, I think. So there's a little bit of art to this. You know, it's nothing that's hard, but you're able to manipulate the cable and make yourself a round snare in the field. You know, so I've done this with my linesman's pliers. I've done this with a rebar stake in the field. You know, a stick usually doesn't have enough strength to change the contour of the cable like this. But since you're carrying one of these anyway, you know, it's just another function for a small, light, inexpensive tool. Alright, so go fire up the welder, get some 1/2-inch bar stock, and you know, try to fabricate one of these. This is a pretty simple project to do. And if you don't have that ability, you know, this is a $5 tool. I do not believe that hole in the handle is included, but you know, you could kind of fabricate that after you pick one up. Till next time, this has been Jamie Boggs with Burning River Bushcraft. See you soon.